All right, let's unpack a really interesting business puzzle. We're talking about PASHA Bank. Now, back home in Azerbaijan, they're a huge deal, the biggest private bank, a real market leader. So in 2015, they decided to expand into Turkey, which is, one of the most competitive banking markets out there. But here's the crazy part. They did it in the absolute smallest way you can imagine. So what on earth was their game plan?
I mean, it just sounds completely backward, right? Why would a giant on its own home turf decide to become the tiniest fish in a massive, shark-infested pond? Well, to solve this little mystery, we have to look way beyond the world of banking. We've got to zoom out and see the bigger picture.
You see, the real story here isn't just about finance. It's about geopolitics, it's about massive infrastructure. The answer to this whole puzzle lies in the creation of a brand new economic corridor. Think of it as a kind of modern-day Silk Road. For years, these three countries had been quietly teaming up, working on these huge projects to connect the Caspian Sea region all the way to Europe. And this created a golden opportunity. The whole idea was to get a massive flow of trade and money moving within this new economic triangle. And, of course, someone was going to have to handle all that cash.
What's really incredible when you look at this is just the sheer scale and the long-term thinking here. This wasn't some quick cash grab. This started way back in 1994 with that massive BTC oil pipeline, then came the BTK railway, and then the TANAP gas pipeline. We are talking about multi-billion-dollar projects that literally paved the way for a whole new regional economy.
And here's the prize they were all looking at. By the year 2020, it was expected that Azerbaijan would pour a staggering $20 billion into the Turkish economy. This wasn't just a small trickle of trade, it was a flood of capital, just waiting for someone to manage it. So yeah, the opportunity was absolutely massive, but so was the challenge.
Because, let's be real, trying to break into the Turkish market is no walk in the park. For PASHA Bank Turkey, let's call them PBT, it was basically like being thrown into a gladiator arena.
Just take a look at these numbers. The Turkish banking scene is packed. There are 50 banks, and many of them are these huge established giants. And PASHA Bank Turkey, well, they showed up with just one single office in Istanbul. 0 branches. They were, without a doubt, the new kid on the block and by far the smallest.
The contrast is just wow. Back home in Azerbaijan, PASHA Bank is the top dog. In Turkey, it's the ultimate underdog. It couldn't possibly compete on size or brand recognition or even on price. It was facing what looked like an impossible uphill battle.
And if you break down the market forces, you can see just how tough it was. Rivalry is sky high. Customers are super savvy. They work with like 5 to 10 different banks and are always hunting for the best deal. A head-on fight would have been absolute suicide for PBT. So, what was their secret weapon?
Okay, this is where the story takes a really brilliant turn. Instead of trying to fight a battle they knew they couldn't win, PVT decided to change the rules of the game completely. They weren't going to compete in that big, crowded pond. Nope, they were going to create their own small, perfectly defensible lake.
They went with what's called a niche strategy. The idea is so simple, but so powerful. Stop trying to be everything to everyone. Instead, you become the absolute best at serving a very specific group of customers who have a very specific need.
And here it is, the whole strategy, straight from the CEO's mouth. They connected the dots. They saw that modern Silk Road taking shape and realized their perfect target market wasn't just Turkish businesses. No, it was any company operating within that very specific trade triangle.
This slide just lays it all out perfectly. Their target customer, not just any company, but specifically those doing business across those 3 countries. Their superpower? It wasn't cheap loans. It was their deep, insider knowledge of the region. They took their Azerbaijani roots, what seemed like a weakness, and turned it into their greatest strength. The goal was simple: become the one indispensable go-to bank for this unique flow of money.
So, what's the big lesson we can pull from this? The PBT story isn't just about a bank in Turkey. It's really a masterclass in modern business strategy that you could apply to almost any industry out there.
And this is the key takeaway right here. PBT knew they could never ever outmuscle the giants of Turkish banking, but they realized they could outthink them. By zeroing in on the small, underserved, and super specific market, they carved out a space where their unique knowledge made them the undisputed leader. They chose focus over sheer scale.
And that's really the big lesson, isn't it? In a world of global giants, sometimes the smartest move you can make is to think small. You see this story play out again and again, from local craft breweries to specialized tech startups. So it leaves you with a question to think about. Where else is a niche strategy the real key to winning?